request my teammates to continue now.
All right, next we're gonna cover some basics and background about MapReduce input. The input for a MapReduce process is called the input split. This is your data and your records that will go into your MapReduce process. You can run many different MapReduce processes at once, so each MapReduce process will have its own input split. And this is just kind of basic Java script of your input split. You could get the length of your input split, that means how many records is in your input split, a location, where the MapReduce process is actually taking place at, that contains that input split. And the input split is automatically ran in the Java system. So this is not something that the input split is not something that you point at. To point at where you want your input split to take place at, you use your input format. This is where your coders write their code for input format to return your input splits. And when you code your input format, it creates a record reader. That's kind of how it lets you know where everything is taking place at, what records are found in the input split, and then you also have different types of input formats, so it lets you know which input format that you had that took place. So we got three basic types of input formats. We got file input format, combined file input format, and whole file input format. Your file input format is basically you taking each file and run it on its own MapReduce process. Your combined file input formats is if you have multiple small records that don't hold that much memory, because each record, your records are stored on nodes. Your node has a certain memory size. So if once your node fills up, it switches to another node. So if you have multiple small inputs and records, but it has multiple records on one node, you'll use your combined input file, and it will combine all those records together and then run this MapReduce process. And your whole file input format, it takes all your records in your Hadoop database and runs them together in one MapReduce process. Just going back to the file input format. This is your file input format is letting your computer find each different record, and you do your MapReduce process on each record. So say if you have, say if you have 3 records and 2 nodes, and say your first node contains record 1 and half of record 2, and your second node contains half of record 2 and all of 3. So your file input format, it will do your MapReduce process from node 1. It will take all of your first record. So that's your first MapReduce process. And then it would take the second record, and would take the half from your first node and the half from your second node and put it together. So that's your second MapReduce, and your third MapReduce is on your third node. That'll be your third MapReduce format. So then this is just some different types of input formats that's you can specify. So if you have text you want to MapReduce, you'll use one of these 3 different types of input formats. If you have binary input, you can use one of these forms. They also have inputs if you want to take data from multiple data sources that has different formats to it. And then also you have your database input, which you're taking data from a relational database to your Hadoop format. Alright, so what's the difference between your file input format and your combined file input format?
I'll answer that one. So you said file is each individual file. It just pulls that file no matter where it's at. It'll pull that one file at a time. Whereas combined, you said would be smaller files. It would just take them all together and work on those.
Right. And with your combined file, it kind of could have a little bit of the file input. When you say you try to take all of them in the first node, but then your last record, all of it's not actually in that first node. It will roll over to your second. It will also go into your second node, take that half a record for combined.
Okay. You give them the key.
So